We're here for MMA Pro Speak and with the legend, Dan the Outlaw Hardy. How are you, first of all? How do you like? What are you expecting from this crazy event in Saudi, PFL event that we have planned?
Man, every time I come out to Riyadh for an event, it just blows my mind. The Fury and Ngannou one was crazy, the Champs v Champs card, and this just feels like it's bigger again. This feels like a massive event. I think it's gonna be really good.
Fury and Ngannou was amazing, of course, and I wanted to ask you about that exactly. What do you think training in boxing over the last 3 years is going to do for Francis Ngannou's game in MMA? How is it going to translate? Is it going to maybe take away a little bit, or is it going to add something to it?
I think it's going to make his footwork better. I think that's the biggest difference, right? We know he's got punching power, and I think his technique with his hands has tightened up a little bit. He looks a little bit cleaner with his punches. But the biggest thing is going to be his footwork, right? In mixed martial arts, when Francis starts moving forward, he can't stop himself, right? He moves until he knocks somebody out. Whereas in boxing, you can't do that because he would keep finding himself in the clinch. So because he was fighting Tyson Fury, who likes to tie people up and tire them out and control them, Francis was doing a very good job of staying out of range, and he showed a good step up in his footwork, which I think is going to be really useful in mixed martial arts. Because what he doesn't want to do is be crashing into a clinch and tying up with Henan unnecessarily and wearing himself out. He needs to be able to get into boxing range and then move out again, into boxing range and move out, and not get too close to him, I would say.
I'm curious, in the past we've seen Henan defeated by the fighters that chose to, let's say, stay with him in the clinch, stay in on a closer distance. So for Francis, you think it's going to be the opposite, like he's going to find success in the boxing distance, right?
I think he needs to get inside the long range of Henan Ferreira, right? So getting into boxing range is going to be the safest place for him. But then if he starts to wrestle against Henan, and Henan's grappling and wrestling has improved so much over the last 2 years, since he moved to American Top Team, that part of his game is so much better than it used to be. So the question for me is, does Francis want to waste his energy trying to take Henan down to the floor, trying to control him on the floor, and then maybe he does for a round, and then he comes out in the second round and he's tired, and then he can't keep his hands up, can't knock his opponent out. I think it might be a waste of energy to try and take Henan Ferreira down, which is why being in that close boxing range is the best place, because then you're outside of the distance striking where he's dangerous, but you're not wasting energy trying to wrestle. That's my thinking.
That's a big man to take down too.
Big man to take down, big man to hold down. Even if you're successful with it, it still takes a lot of energy, and that's energy that you could use for punches.
Sure. We also have two other championship fights on this card of the rematch between Eblen and Fabian Edwards. What do you think? What do you think the progress was in the game of both of these guys, and do you think it's gonna be any different from the first fight that they had?
I think we're going to see some differences between the two. I think Fabian was doing all of the right things in the last fight. He just wasn't. He was doing enough to stop Eblin doing what he wanted to do, but he wasn't doing anything above that. I think Fabian needs to be more aggressive this time around and to be more attacking. Try and land more strikes. I think Eblin needs to be more respectful of Fabian's takedown defense, right? Because that was really slowing him down in the last fight. Like, Fabian was able to defend the takedowns. That's ultimately why they ended up breaking the clinch and he landed the elbow, because they were coming out of a wrestling clinch. I think ultimately Eblin needs to believe in his striking a little bit more, still use the takedown feints to set up his strikes. And I think Fabian needs to be more aggressive with his striking to make something count this time around. He was so close with that elbow last time. Some doctors may have stopped it. And I think Eblin really showed his championship quality by coming out and getting the knockout.
How much do you think, blood and cuts and all these things are not, you're accustomed to this, you basically lived in that, and that's why we're such huge fans. How do you think that affected Eblin in that case? And he just came out of the gates and just got the KO basically.
I think he realized that he had less than a round. I think what did he have? He had 2 more rounds to go in the fight. I think he knew that the doctor would have probably stopped it at the end of the round. So he had 5 minutes or less to work. He had a bad cut that was right across in between his eyes. So even if he'd have taken 2 or 3 more jabs on that at the start of the round and it was bleeding badly, the doctor may have stopped it. So I just think Eblin realized that his belt was on the line and he needed to do something in 2 or 3 minutes, otherwise he was going to lose it. And I think that's why he was able to connect with that second punch.
Sure. 2 more questions, I'll let you go. You've always been outspoken about MMA, outspoken about the rules of MMA and some changes that needed to be made. And in November, we're actually getting some changes in the rules of MMA regarding the downed opponent, regarding a 12-6 elbow that, famously John Jones has the only defeat or disqualification by it. Well, I'm curious, what do you think about the rule changes and what else could they improve in terms of rules for MMA fighters?
Well, I mean, I like the changes. I think it's good that we're keeping the sport moving forward and we're looking at changing things for improvement. The 12-6 rule was a silly rule to begin with, so that if it just caused confusion. John Jones should be undefeated, as we know. And I would even make an argument that those elbows weren't 12-6. Like they were, it was like 1-7, or you know what I mean? It was like
11:30.
There you go, 11:30. Yeah. So like I just think that was an easy rule to take out. Sure. The downed opponent rule, we'll see how it works, but I think we're going to have the same problem, right? Previously we had finger contact, and then we went hand contact. Now we're going to have knee contact, right? We're going to have guys on all fours just touching their knee down, then coming back up again. So I feel like that rule's good for the moment. But I feel like ultimately we'll change it again in the future, and I think the rule will be if you're on your back or on your side, no strikes to the head with legs. Sure. I think that will be the new rule because hands down, knees down. It's gonna cause it'll cause confusion still.
Sure. I'll be remiss if I didn't ask you about the two champs that Georgians have in the UFC. Of course, Merab Dvalishvili, Ilia Topuria. I know you watch everything. You're basically involved and embrace the MMA world. What do you think about these fighters and their future, and also upcoming fight of Ilia? He's defending his belt the first time against Max Holloway. Could you tell us a couple of words?
I think it's going to be a very exciting fight. The thing is with Topuria, he's got the power in his hands, but he's also very, very well rounded. I remember seeing him fight, was it Brian Boulon on Cage Warriors many years ago, and he finished him with a choke at Anaconda, I think it was. His ground game is very, very formidable, and I think if he's able to get Max to the floor, I think he beats Max on the floor. But on the feet, it's very, very competitive. And I think, with Max's pace, Max got a very, very high volume of striking. If he's able to get out of the gate and start accumulating strikes, that's where Max can win this fight. He can win on points and he can drag this into the championship rounds. I think Ilia needs to keep this an MMA fight. He needs to keep mixing up his right hand with his takedowns and keep changing the levels on Max to keep him working at a pace that he doesn't like.
Sure.
And Merab. Oh, man, I'm a huge fan of that guy. Huge fan of that guy. He just has such an incredible pace, such an incredible gas tank, and just great energy, right, all the time. Even when he dives into a frozen lake and busts his head open, he's still smiling, he's still good. Big fan of that guy. And I like his whole team. I trained with Sarah and Longo. Great guys, great team to have around him. He's got a long title reign ahead of him, I think.
Thank you very much. Good luck in November. I know Veronica Hart is fighting in November, UFC 309. With the legend, then the outlaw Hardy, MMA pro speak El Bucho. We out. Shmo, I'm taking all your lines, baby. Thank you so much.